Good morning, I'm Chris Fox, and welcome to week 7 of 12 weeks to a trilogy. So we're almost 2/3 of the way through this challenge, and wow, has it been a crazy week. So as you can see from the title, I did have a couple of setbacks this week, and we're going to get into those and how I dealt with them. But first I want to start with the good news. So my deadline was April 1st. I was supposed to send the first novel to Tammy, my line editor. And I hit that deadline. And this is important because, if somebody else is waiting on me to hand them off the baton, I need to make sure I hit those dates. And I did. I got that book off to her. She's now working on the edit for Behind the Lines, the first book. And I'm only going to see that one more time before publication. I'll get one day to process her edits. It'll probably take me, 5 to 6 hours to clean up and integrate everything that she does on the book. But other than that, it's done. So, yay, that's a pretty major milestone. Yesterday, Wednesday, I sent her Planet Strider, so she now also has the prequel novella. And today, I get to get back to writing book 2. So if you remember, I have maybe 5,000 to 8,000 words left to write in the novel, and what I'm going to do is jump in and do the read-through, just like as if the book was done. And then when I get to the point that I haven't yet written, the finale at the end, I'll write that. So my goal is to have that done in the next 7 days. That would mean that in the next video that you see, I should be 1 day away from completion. So wish me luck. Now let's get on to the setbacks part of things. So what went wrong this week? Well, 2 major things. I'm going to start with the more minor of the 2, taxes. Here in the United States, I don't know how it works across the world, but in the United States, April is tax time. And April 18th is the last day for you to file this year. I needed to get my taxes done. I've been putting it off. I've been kicking the can down the road and saying, I'll deal with it later, because I have a lot of stuff going on, obviously. Well, when the calendar ticked over into April and Monday got here and I realized, oh my God, it is tax time, I gotta do this, I paused the challenge entirely. I stopped it and I said, I'm not gonna work on the challenge at all. I need to get my taxes done. In the next section of the video, you're gonna see just kind of a brief overview of what's involved in that. What I had to do is go through 3 different bank accounts and add up every transaction for the entire year and decide what was gonna be written off and what wasn't. And so I went through literally several thousand of these transactions, figuring out what can I get away with writing off, what doesn't make sense at all, and packaging this all up in a spreadsheet that I could send to my accountant. And they could review it and say, okay, yes, Chris, you can write off 100% of this, but maybe you should only do 50% of this and this one not at all. And there was a lot of work involved, and it took the better part of a day to do. But because I buckled down and I didn't do any writing and I just got the work down and just cranked it out, I spent, 8, 10 hours working on the spreadsheet and I got it all done. So by Tuesday morning, I had submitted my taxes to the accountant. We played tennis back and forth as they asked for more things, but as of right now, I've given them everything they've asked for, and so far as I know, my taxes should be filed today or tomorrow. So yay, that's done too. It was a minor setback because it really detracted from me working on the challenge, but it was a setback. Now, the major setback, this one cropped up in the middle of last week, kind of quite by accident. I hadn't looked at my ads in a very long time. For those that don't know, I have a personal assistant who handles many things for me because I have a lot going on. And one of the things that I had handed off to her was ads. And that proved, unfortunately, to be a mistake. And I want to be clear early on, guys, I'm not blaming her for this, as you'll hear through the video. But I was losing a lot of money. So looking at ad performance, you can see where I was running the ads back in I think May was the last time I ran ads. They were very profitable. I was making a lot of money off the back of my ads. And then if you look from May until the present, my profit dwindles. And then it finally gets to a point where I'm spending about $150 a day. And that's not being spent profitably. I'm not getting an equivalent amount of sales and I'm losing money. So here I am pouring out something like $4,500 a month in ad spend, and I'm not recouping that as profit. I'm not getting an equivalent amount of sales. And so you can imagine how that might be a little bit frustrating and scary, where you realize that many thousands of dollars over probably the last 6 months have kind of been flushed down the toilet. It was a brutal, bitter moment for me where I realized that. And so you might ask, well, how do you react when you were delivered a piece of news like this, that thousands of dollars have been spent poorly, that a mistake of that caliber has been made, and then it's due to someone else's actions? What do? Well, I made the decision to take ownership of this fact. I looked at it like, well, do I want to blame her for this? No. No, because ultimately the responsibility here, it rests with me. I should have been looking in on these ads every Friday. I should have had meetings with her. I should have worked more closely with her to see what we were doing. And I should have known that there was a problem many months back. But I didn't, because I had effectively abdicated responsibility for my ads and left that in the care of another and wasn't even looking in to see how they were doing. So that was my fault. And for a day, I was fairly depressed and upset and a little bit panicked because it was more money than I wanted to spend, and I had to sort of look around my finances to make sure I wasn't in dire straits. But once I had done kind of that assessment, I took a big step back and a big deep breath, and I dove in and I fixed the ads. I took immediate action. I pruned all the keywords that I was losing money on. I increased the budget to those that were still performing well. I added a bunch of new keywords. I created my first new crop of ads in a long time. And by the end of the day, something funny happened. I was having fun. I really like the optimization of these ads. I like working on them, and I kind of miss doing them. So handing them off to an assistant, it made sense logistically because I need to write books. But clearly that may not have been the best decision. And since I have to jump back into it anyway, I figured, why not enjoy it? And so I have enjoyed it, and I've sort of repaired the problem. And for those of you who watch my motivational videos, you know how I feel about today versus yesterday and tomorrow. I focus on today. The ad problem, these thousands of dollars that I lost, those are in the past. Can't change it. I fixed the problem, so what's left? Nothing. It's done. It's dealt with. It's water under the bridge. And so I'm back in a great mood. I'm moving on to the next challenge, and there will be challenges. There always are challenges. I just move on. I move on and I focus on the next problem. Because if you dwell on the past, if you dwell on things that are negative in your life, if you dwell on the slights that other people have given you, it really only hurts you. And focusing on that stuff detracts from your ability to focus on the present, to focus on the things that you want to accomplish. So when I am dealt a setback, as I was with these ads and as I was with taxes, I just handle it. I handle it as adroitly as possible. I don't let it affect my mindset. As soon as it's dealt with, I kind of silo it in the background and I focus on what's important and I start working on the next thing. And so today I get to dive into the books again. I get to start writing fiction again. And after a few days off, I miss it. I really miss it. So I'm excited to get back to the writing. I'm excited to tell you next week when it's week 8, hey, I finished the second book. So we're 2 books through this challenge. So try to turn setbacks, if you can, into positives. It can be done. And really the only difference between a good day and a bad day is how you view it. You get to choose what things mean when they happen to you. And so I choose to see this as a wake-up call. I choose to see this as I made a mistake, I should have been more focused, and I'm fixing the problem. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into the last section of the video. It'll be short. It's just going to cover the expenses that I generated on Monday, and I'm going to walk you through kind of what I had to do for the accountant and why, just so you can get a peek at that. If you watched my 2016 income report, you already saw a little of this where I went over my estimated income and my estimated expenses, but this is more in depth and this is what I'm actually filing with. So anyway, let's go ahead and jump into that part of the video. Okay, so what we are looking at is the spreadsheet that I put together to categorize all of my expenses. And it's important to note that for this year, it'll be much easier for me because all this is done in QuickBooks. And the reason I didn't use QuickBooks for this, which, it sucks because QuickBooks is amazing, is that I had 3 different accounts to work with. So in the beginning, I had a personal account where some of my business expenses were going. And then I became a sole proprietorship, so I created a business account for that. But then later in the year, I was making enough money that my accountant recommended that I become a corporation, because a corporation is going to present certain tax advantages. Most notably, in the state of California at least, I can't speak for elsewhere, you are taxed on your gross income for the purposes of payroll. So if you're, let's say, a doctor and you get $120,000 in income that year, but you had $80,000 in expenses, so you only made $40,000, Uncle Sam is taxing you like all $120,000 is profit. So scary stuff. So to get around that, what they recommend you do is become a corporation, and that's what I've done here. That gave me a third business account, which made it a little too complicated to get it all done in QuickBooks, which is why this is done in hand. Anyway, here's a look at some of the big numbers. So we've got total expenses, $105,000. For those that watched my 2016 income video, you'll notice that this number is much higher. The big difference is that I wasn't writing off the salary that I paid myself, and now I am. So that's why the number is so different. Total income is about the same. This is what actually came into the account. So if you look in that video, it said I made about 160 grand. There's a delay in Amazon paying you, and so some of that money came in January and counts as this year's income, not last year. So that's why the number's a little lower. But anyway, my profit and loss was about 45,000. That's how much I made above and beyond what I spent. And then month by month, I went through this, and you can see all of these expenses, and there's a variety of them: software, food, paying for audio recording, purchasing computers, all sorts of stuff. And I'm not going to go through the entire list just because there are literally hundreds of transactions, but we will jump into a couple of other bits about it. So first off, the IRS wanted me to categorize this into their categories, not all of which makes sense to me, but with my accountant's help, I was able to do this. And you can see I sort of had to break it all down, which definitely took some time. Income was way easier. I only have 3 major sources, and those are listed here. Yeah, and then I've got my monthly P&I, profit and I'm sorry, it should be P&L, not P&I, profit and loss. This isn't 100% accurate. I have a little more work to do here, but this is sort of the rough draft. Again, this isn't something I want to normally do by hand. This is something that is calculated elsewhere, but I just kind of wanted to take a look and see how I was doing. And I made a profit every month, which was good. The exception is here where I paid myself a big lump sum as a salary. Yeah, so that kind of covers what I worked on. It's a brief look at it. This is something that you're going to need to do if you become a business, especially if you become a corporation. One of the things that you can do to save yourself a lot of heartache if you want to learn from my mistake is set up a business account early. If you're going to need a corporation and your accountant suggests one, get it set up early. And as soon as is humanly possible, move all of your payments and expenses to that account because it's going to save you having to do what I did here. But anyway, that's a brief look at what was involved. This took 2 days of my time to create, but wow, is it worth it? It's done. My taxes are filed. Yay! So I'm going to get back to the writing, and this time around, I'm really excited because it's been a few days. All right, guys, hopefully I will have another book to show off next week. Wish me luck.